But going back to the video, I know people won't even meet us in this conversation of racism because they don't know how we got to the conversation of racism. What people don't understand is racism is also what you don't say. It's in your actions, it's in your speech, but it's subliminal.
All right, guys, what's up? I'm super excited to have my good friend, Mark Bush on the show today. Mark and I have been friends for about 12 years, and we've got a pretty cool story together. We connected very, very closely in our first tour in Iraq in 2008, and we've been buddies ever since. And in fact, Mark is probably one of the handful of guys, one or two or three, that have actually kept in contact from the military. Just because of the connection and really the character of this man here. So I'm super excited to have him on the show. Mark was a veteran of the Air Force for 12 years. Is that correct?
About
12 years.
11 and a half.
So 11 and a half. So same as me. We both served the same amount of time. Three combat tours to Iraq. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
He was a military working dog handler in the Air Force. Really cool job. One that is very, very rare in the Air Force. After he got out of the Air Force, he quickly went to become a director of operations of a company and then was very quickly promoted to a CEO. So if that tells you a little bit about him and his character and his ability to lead, it's absolutely phenomenal. In fact, that's why I clung on to him so quickly in 2008 when I first met him, is because of his leadership ability and his ability to inspire and make massive change. In fact, I remember in 2008 when I first met him, I saw the impact that he had to higher ranking officials. He had a connection with people that was unbelievable. And I remember aspiring to have that. You know, the last 12 years of my life, I've been working to how do I have that connection with people? How do I bring that, that sort of energy and hope to people to where they cling on to me and want to do what I'm doing, and I can affect their decision-making process. And that's just something that he does so well. And it speaks volumes of the network that he has and that he's built in his life. The dude's probably got like 12,000 friends. And he knows all of them. But if you follow this guy on Instagram, every time he's traveling somewhere, he knows someone, he's meeting up with somebody. It's kind of unbelievable. I'm like, holy crap. How do you know someone in like every city of the United States? But so he got out, became the director of operations of a company, quickly promoted to CEO, and then found his entrepreneurial spirit and started his own operations, in which he started 2 companies now, I believe. Is that correct? And now he's still the founder and CEO of a company running a very good operation in the healthcare industry, correct?
Yep.
Out of Georgia. So welcome, Mark. Been looking forward to this for quite a while, and I think it's very good timing. You know, we've had a few conversations over the last few months, and it's been very good just speaking to you about, for one, just catching up with you in your life, but also talking about current events and your feelings and kind of your ability to think outside the box, your ability to use your intellect to create change. So, Mark, if you don't mind, go ahead and talk about your giant family, where you grew up, and kind of what made Mark Bush today.
Yeah, man. Hey, Nate, first off, I appreciate you having me on the show. It's a huge honor. Super proud of watching you from 2008 as a young airman to the entrepreneur, leader, mogul you've become thus far. So I really appreciate you having me on the show. So just for your audience, so that they can get to know who I am and where my mindset comes from. Born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. I was born to a alcoholic drug abuser father, to a mom that was very successful in the banking industry. Found ourselves maybe like around when I was 3 years old. They were separated due to his addiction and the way he treated us as a family. Rushing right into it, I'm gonna rush right out of it. But just to make, I don't ever like to, be a victim of a situation. I'm always a victor of a situation. And so it turned out that my dad came over one day and he beat and killed my mother in front of me and my twin brother.
Wow.
So he did that, left, and he left me and my twin there, left, and he jumped in front of a train and killed himself.
Wow.
So in one day, we became orphans, me, my twin, and my oldest brother. The way
How
that
old were you?
I was 3 years old. My
3 years old.
oldest brother was 6. Me and my twin were 3.
Wow.
They came over to the house to notify my mom that my dad had killed himself, to only find that we were there by ourselves and she was murdered. What's crazy is we were able to be raised, all of us were raised by our family. So my mom's younger brother and his wife took on 3 kids on top of their 1 daughter at that time. So instantly they became a family of 6.
Wow.
All of us. So I happened to be able to stay in my family. I was raised with and I call them my father and my mother now, who's a pastor, and then my mom, she was stay-at-home mom for all these years, and we ended up becoming a family of 9 kids. So my family,
gosh.
oh yeah, 9 kids, 7 boys, 2 girls, all raised as brothers and sisters. And I've had a blessed life, and I remember like going through life, especially at the younger age, I used to always feel down and out about not, having my mother, not remember what she smelled like, not remember what she sounded like. And I remember there was a pivotal point when I was about 14, 15 years old, where I realized my life was spared to be a blessing and purposeful for other people that I come in contact with.
Wow.
And that has literally been my life mission. Any circles, I'm always like, people gravitate, and I'm always blessed by people gravitating to me and learning different things. I have friends from like all different walks, different countries, different cities, different states, different race, nationalities, creeds, everything. So because of that creed back in the day of what my life purpose was, I'm able to use that into, in everything that I do. So developed a couple of books to talk about that intentionality, hashtag live intentionally. It's a lifestyle. It's go be a blessing to someone else and watch the purpose it brings back into your life. And it changes everything. Yeah. So that's
wow, dude. That's
quick snippet of it. Yeah.
That's deep, man. But what I love is as I've gotten to know you better over the years and seeing you on social and like the way you are with your family is, dude, like you have such a close family, and the way you are with your mom and your dad and your brother. If you didn't know he's a twin, I don't know if you mentioned that or not, but the way he is with Marlon and man, it's really cool watching how close you are with your family. But I think that also speaks about you as a man and how you are with everybody.
Yeah.
Because as I've gotten to know you, you've always felt like a brother to me. Like the types of conversations we have are just so much different than a typical friendship, right? Yeah. We're not talking about girls and bars and manly things. We're talking about stuff that's deep.
Yeah.
We're talking about business.
Leadership.
Yeah. Exactly.
Business. Yeah.
And that's I think from just a friendship perspective, that's such a better connection to have with someone than those superficial surface level things. Is, it's why I respect our friendship so much, is because we go deep, man. We talk about the important things in life.
So one of my things is I do believe that sometimes people treat friendships like it's transactional. What's in it for me? Once I get everything that I need, then what good are you? So why do we need to stay in touch? There's this saying, out of sight, out of mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the case with me. It's a friend now is a friend forever, as long as they want to be friends, because it takes 2. But it doesn't have to be over needing something. It's all about building who you are based on what other people can build in you as a person. And that's what I got out of my friendships.
Yeah. So on that same topic, Mark, you're overly giving and generous to everybody you meet.
Yeah.
Like that's just you.
Yeah.
And, I think that you could befriend anybody. But has it ever gotten you in trouble or gotten you burned in your life?
So the thing is, though, is we look at like you used the word burned. Yeah, it bites you every time. The biggest thing for me is I can't allow one bad bite to ruin my heart and the posture that I like it to be in. So sometimes people get bit and they just start to harden their hearts so that it doesn't happen again. For me, I've been really good at, taking a hit, recovering, but the next person I meet doesn't have to pay the price for what someone else did to me or what somebody else didn't appreciate about what I had to offer. So it's all about a mental, intentional relationship with your mind and your heart to understand that you can't let somebody else change your heart posture for other people.
That's huge, man. I think that's one thing is like that you're just so connected to your heart that you're very resilient in those times where you are quote unquote burned. And you always find your way back. One thing I've always noticed about you is you just have a different outlook on life.
Yeah.
You mentioned, the most people that I've ever met, and you mentioned the connection, of kind of your purpose. I didn't even ask you what your purpose was in life, but you stated it.
Yeah.
And you and I both know the amount of people that we're around and that we touch that, most people that we encounter don't know their purpose in life.
Yep.
But what that changes is you being so dedicated to that purpose. I think that changes the way you show up every single day. Is that right?
The thing is, though, what's crazy is it starts with, first off, identifying what do you have to offer people. And once you identify what you have to offer to people, then you make that a lifestyle. And once it's a lifestyle, it's not something that I have to think about. It's just who I am. Believe it or not, I wasn't always an extrovert. To get myself out of being an introvert, I made myself speak to people. And so anytime I pass by people, I speak to them. Good morning. Good afternoon. How you doing? Loving life, living the dream, making life happen, And the thing is, though, is we never know what people are thinking as they're walking by us. To be able to intentionally give them a mind switch by just speaking and being genuine and doing that. And man, I tell you, once you change your lifestyle, the lifestyle becomes a habit, and it just goes on, and you don't even think about what you're doing and the purpose you're actually bringing. Your life is in fact purposeful.
Right. And I think that's something you live beautifully every single day. I'm sure you have your struggles, as we all do, but it just seems like it comes so natural to you. But I think that's also because you've identified your purpose and it's become your lifestyle. So I think it's easier. I mean, it can be incredibly difficult because it's a hard lifestyle to keep up with. Let's be real.
It is. But
I think that, man, just the people that you touch and the lives that you impact on a day-to-day basis, I think that is so unbelievable. And man, it's why I got you on the show. It's why I brought you to have this conversation about a very big topic in the world today that I think that you speak so intelligently. I spoke to Mark a couple of days ago. We talked for, I think, an hour and a half, almost 2 hours on the phone. And it was a very intellectual, educational conversation for me, and a very revealing conversation that I enjoyed so much because Mark just has this way of articulating things in his mind that most people don't have. He thinks such bigger view than the average consumer of all the information in the world. And really that's what connected us today. Is actually, we almost had him on the podcast a couple months ago, but after everything happened with George Floyd a couple weeks ago, or just over a week ago, we said, let's make this happen and let's educate, let's inform, and let's give some advice, and just let people have your voice, because I think your voice speaks louder than most, and it speaks more clearly than most. So let's go ahead and just shift gears, man. Let's go ahead and just talk. The other day we kind of talked about your vision of, in fact, actually, let's go straight to some of your stories, Mark, because what really hit me the other day, I told you this on the phone, was that I've known you for 12 years. Mm-hmm. You've been a great friend of mine for 12 years. And the IGTV you posted on your page the other day struck me. It completely broke my heart because you said some things that I didn't ever know that was a thing for you. And it kind of reveals the blind eye that we've had as a society. No matter what your race, color, religion, any of that, like people just haven't been aware because it's become a societal norm.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of ignorance in that.
But I think sometimes when we think about it, you know, there's a saying, it says, you never know what someone else is dealing with. And
Right.
they'll treat everyone like you can be the change agent in their life. And sometimes I think about, and I'm already getting like chills in saying this, but man, I tell you, when watching that video, there was a lot of emotions that went on in my head. In most every other video, we can, you know, it's like a couple of seconds, the action happens, and the first immediate question is, well, we don't know what happened before. What happened before? And so in this incident, first couple of seconds of this video, I think the world was like, okay, the cop's on his neck. We don't know what happened before, why he's in that position. As it went to 4 to 5 minutes, the world kind of like gasped a little bit, and we're like, surely he's going to get off of this guy's neck. Then at the end of the 10-minute video, I know for me, I asked, I said, did we just watch this man die?
Mm-hmm.
I had to go Google to get another, because it was fresh when I saw the video.
Yeah.
And I hadn't had any other information over it. And to be honest, I'd still been kind of worked up over the Ahmaud Arbery case here in Georgia a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
That came to light a couple of weeks ago, happened back in February 28th. But actually February 23rd. But in that moment, I think a large majority of the world, they saw it and they said, we can definitively say that was wrong. I think when I saw the video, and I think with a lot of Blacks in America, we didn't just see George Floyd, we saw ourselves.
Mm.
And I do remember when I posted that video. I posted a video because me and my girlfriend are heading to North Carolina for the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very fresh, and we were talking about it. I could not control my feelings. I couldn't control like how emotional it was for me, because it felt like I snapped back and replayed every event from the age of 11 to a couple of weeks ago. Wow. Where racism and discrimination was in the mix of my life. And if I can put it plainly, and this is what I think Blacks are going through right now, is experiencing. So sometimes, you know, we say we don't sit around and have pity parties. You know, I never have a pity party. But in that moment, it was like every moment came flushing back, and you literally felt the weight of what racism actually feels like. And I heard somebody say, and I know people don't like labels and titles and the negativity that comes behind these labels, but they said, white people have the privilege to learn about racism, while Blacks have lived it. And Nate, for me, a lot of times people think that because, and I know, let's go back to the video, a lot of people don't even know how we've come to the topic of racism. I was unpacking this over the last week, and I tell you, this is the best time to do this podcast, because I've been very worked up, angry, and I'm like, and now I'm on the side of like, okay, what's our solution? What are my actions in making sure that we can move forward from this? But going back to the video, I know people won't even meet us in this conversation of racism because they don't know how we got to the conversation of racism. There's two things that people definitively say, okay, this is racist. If they use the N-word, or if they say, because you're Black.
Right.
What people don't understand is racism is also what you don't say. It's in your actions, it's in your speech, but it's subliminal. So when I was in high school, I couldn't go over to one of my friend's house, and her dad never said because you're black or called me the N word. The fact that I was excluded was racist in itself.
Mm.
I was the CEO. It wasn't my company. They promoted me to CEO. I was the CEO of a $5 million agency. I'd walk into a place to do business, and it doesn't matter. And people always say this. It's like, oh, surely, Mark, you don't get discriminated against or treated with any racism because you're a well-articulated black man and you dress well. That's what people have said. And you're like, so wait a minute. So what you're saying is if I don't articulate well and if I don't wear what you think I should wear, then I am deserving to be treated less than? So that's always a crazy concept that people think. But I'll go in to do business. I'm the CEO of a $5 million company. I want some of this, I want that, I want this, I want it this way, I want it that way, this way, this way. And I'm met with phrases like, are you sure? You know it's going to be about this much, right? As if to say that, how could you be able to afford all the things that you're ordering right now? That's racist. Because you reasonably assume somebody has a certain stature or they're less than you. That's racism. So unpacking that, going from 11 to 14 to 15 to 18 to 20 to even in the military. I know that there was some clear jobs that I was not given because I didn't fit the bill. I wasn't their type of guy, So when we're thinking about the George Floyd incident, it's not necessarily making George Floyd a martyr. It's the incident around the circumstances of how he lost his life that allow people to be so connected and feel so similar that has affected the Black community in such a big way.
Yeah.
If that answers your question.
No, that's exactly what I wanted this audience to hear.
Yeah.
Because it's such a different perspective. Like people, just like you said, the two instances of what people typically think racism is and what it really is. Yep. And actually how did all those other actions line up in so many people's lives that they don't even know?
Here's the crazy thing, Nate, is I've had some talks with some of my group of friends and some of my group of white friends. And, I had one guy, he just broke down and just broke into tears. And he's just like, everything you talked about, I've done it. And he's like, I have Black friends. And that's another misconception. Just because you have Black friends don't make you non-racist. It's when the person isn't your friend, what are the thoughts in your head that you perceive just because of the color of somebody's skin? That's racist.
Mark, how do you think that's become such a dominant thing in this country?
Bro, you're gonna be into it, man. And so like this last week and some change has been the most unpacking I've ever done, like mentally, because there was a point of last week where I felt like such a victim. And it was like, man, this is my life that I've been navigating in. And for the first time ever, I'm in it. And so then I go back to, how did we get here? So I'll give you two folds of that story. And I can relate everything to dog training. I did dog training for 11 and a half years in the military. So I will always revert back to dog training. Classical conditioning. So classical conditioning is what you do to create a behavior in the dog. So sometimes it's the subliminal things that were done when we were kids that we didn't even realize we were being trained into. So when you're a young white kid, you're sitting in the back seat of a car and your mom's sitting in the front seat. And this is just an example. Your mom sitting in the front seat. Your dad ran into the store. People walk by the car all the time, from their cars to the shopping center. But all of a sudden, a black person that didn't fit the build for an okay black person walks near the car. Your mom locks the door. Classical conditioning has applied. You have paired that mom was afraid because of this event. So nothing was verbally said, something was done. So I'll give you another, for instance, you're walking in the park or you're walking down the street, and all of a sudden a black person is walking towards your mom or your dad, and they pull you in closer. You know what that pull means. And so these are things that, like, maybe you don't say the N word, or maybe you don't say this, that, and the other, or something you watch on TV makes you think that, okay, they're all like that. That's how it begins. But even on the flip side, when you're the little black boy sitting in the back seat and the cop pulls your dad over, and while you may not understand what the exchange is between your dad and the cop, you know what embarrassment and you know what shame looks like on your dad. To understand that this transaction happened after this cop. And let me say, before anybody gets all off the topic here, I don't hate cops. I'm not anti-cop. I was a cop. I worked in the sheriff's department, 19 to 21 before I joined the Air Force. I was military police in the military, K-9 in the military for 11 and a half years. I have a lot of respect for cops, but I do know that there is an issue when it comes to elevated amount of transactions when it comes to people of color.
Right. That's a thing.
Yeah.
There's no discounting that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that, dude, like, I appreciate your vulnerability in this too, because, I think maybe that you have kept these things to yourself a lot. I think that maybe you haven't, we talked the other day, you said, this is just how life is.
Yeah.
This is just life. And that's what you told me. And I said, man, that hurts my heart so much that
it's like one of those things where, Nate, it's like so many times where, someone's questioned my presence being somewhere. Oh, you need to show me a key card to let me know that you're supposed to be in this pool area. Where's your hotel room at? I've had that happen several times, and it's never a big deal. We just say to ourselves, it's just the way it is. Show them the key card, they'll go on their way. There's no problems here. Like, you're navigating their space, so you're grateful for them, letting you just show your way through, and then you're good to go. And I'll tell you this too, Nate. I wrote something the other day, and I was just searching my own self, and I'm like, if I'm being honest, I've also been complicit in this. As a black man, I've been complicit in racism. It's a weird thing to say out loud, but I will share with your audience that there's a certain point or a certain part of me that felt that I needed white people to validate me. I felt that as a person, as a teenager, as an adult, as a business owner, that I needed to be the example to white people of what they should view black people as.
Have you ever, so I'm sure you have, because this is a very common thing, but have you ever been called the white black guy?
So that's a term that I have been called, and it's one of those things where people think they're actually paying you a compliment. And they say,
that's a huge problem.
They say, Bush, you're the whitest black guy I've ever met.
Wow.
And, I've corrected some, but I've laughed it off for others. And, I think sometimes I'm like, okay, I know their heart, they're not racist, but that is a very racist thing to say.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those things where what they're actually saying to me and how I process it is, Bush, you're our type of black guy. You're the kind of black guy we can get along with.
Mm.
And like I said, there's a certain part of me that has felt like I've been complicit in the ongoing nature of racism in America too, So yeah. And the thing is if I can't call myself out, how can I expect other people to search their hearts and say, okay, I don't know where that came from, but now that I've identified it, I need to peel it out and make sure that, that doesn't come back in, or that I'm intentionally synced to understand when my heart feels something about somebody just because of a preconceived notion of them.
Yeah. I think you made a very good point. I think there's the classic conditioning going on in white families and, probably more different race and ethnicities that is conditioned by the parents.
Yeah.
So as a young 6-year-old boy or girl, white boy or girl, you don't know any different because your parents condition you that way, and then you end up acting that way, and the cycle never breaks.
Yeah.
And then there's the conditioning from you where it just became a norm. So like, that's not like it's not like you consciously made a choice that, well, I'm just going to accept this, unless I'm misspeaking. But I think that at some point you just said, well, this is normal. And you've been conditioned that way. It's everywhere around you all the time. And that just became life.
What was crazy, Nate, is when I was researching the Ahmaud Arbery case, where black boy, 25 years old, is running down the street, and 2 men chase him down in a truck. He gets in a tussle, and they kill him in the middle of the street. Broad daylight, by the way. When I was researching that case, listening to 911 calls, because I just don't call things racist. I like to research things.
Yeah, of course, and that's huge.
And I listened to the 911 call. I read the police report. I read the letter from the second district attorney before he recused himself. And man, it literally took me back to a moment in Ohio. And in this moment, it took me back to October last year. I was there for a wedding, parked my car, went to a buddy's house. We were hanging out. I come out on the porch. It's like 12:30 at night. I'm about to head back to my Airbnb. I come out on the porch, pitch dark neighborhood. I'm wearing a Louisville Cardinals hoodie. And I remember my immediate thought was, Lord, let me make it back to my car without any incident. I was parked 2 blocks over because there was no parking on these Midwest streets so tight. And when I was looking at the Ahmaud Arbery case, I just thought about like how normal that prayer was in October for me just to say, Lord, let me make it back to my car without any incident. And the incident is someone thinking I didn't belong in their neighborhood and needing to challenge me for being there. And that's one of the things that I've said to myself, like, it's so normal because all I say is it's just the way it is. It's just that normal. Yeah.
Man, that's deep, man. And it's so unfortunate that this is where we are. It's where we've been. But I think that you've got a very good perspective on where it can go.
Yeah.
I think that, I think the world's confused right now. The United States is very confused. I think there's so much emotion happening right now that it's, I think it's so heightened right now that not everybody understands it. They don't like.
So I don't think it's like a confusion. I think people it's like waking up from a sleep.
Oh yeah, that makes more sense. Absolutely.
And it's like, even for me, it was like waking up from sleep and realizing, holy crap, it's not as good as we thought it was. Not as good as we should be. So it leads into, how do we get there? And I say this, everybody wants this big action. They want legislation, they want policies, but just like almost everything, it starts at home. It starts at home. It starts with ourselves. So if I'm a Black man, it starts with my heart. not to feel like a victim, not to feel like I'm less than anybody, not to feel like I need validation from anyone outside of myself. It starts with me. Heal first. But what we got going on though, all over social media is it's left wing, it's right wing, it's left wing, right wing. They're doing this. Look at that. They're doing that. Look at this. And it's like, wait a minute, guys. We are one wing, or we're two wings on the same eagle. So if one wing is down, we're all going down. And so if we can stop with the party lines, no, this is a heart situation. There's no legislation that can fix the heart. And so if we can say, okay, I'm going to work with myself first, see where I've been complicit in this, see where I can rip it out and say, okay, never again. I won't come back here, and I'm going to be watching and guarded to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Then we have the conversations with our families. We even when we're sitting at dinner and somebody say something sideways, we nip that in the bud and we talk about why that shouldn't be even be said. That's how we change the world. It's like one person to another, me talking to you, you talking to your audience talking to their family, and share. But it's like, it starts with us first.
Yeah, it's breaking the conditioning. But we got to stop. It's stopping the pattern. I think you're right. Like, I think everybody right now, I think this is such a monumental event. You know, it just created so much attention that everybody's like, well, how do I fix this now? Everybody wants the solution right now, but I don't think that there is one right now. And I think that the solutions being thrown around and the animosity and the hate between all people is actually only furthering the problem, not creating a solution.
Yep.
But I will say I completely understand it, especially from the Black community. Like the feelings that you felt when you watched the video are completely real, completely raw. And I think that, just like you said, everybody in the Black community felt that. It was a trigger for everybody in the Black community to say, holy crap, this is real, because we saw the real video, we saw the whole thing. And I think that was such a trigger, which created so much outrage and anger and animosity, completely understandable and validated.
But what I'll say though, man, is we are at probably one of the best periods in history, I believe, when it comes to racism.
Yeah.
Because it's not just a one-sided, this is wrong. I think a lot of people's eyes were open to, wow, we couldn't even fathom the weight of what you're dealing with racism. And we see it now. We see you now. You know, and I think that there is a new table being built for people to come around and share, you know, what it actually feels like as best as possible, because it is definitely something that is very hard to explain outwardly. And I don't want to be that person that's like, this is racist, that's racist, this is racist, that's racist. But if we can say, if I don't prejudge people before meeting them and knowing the levels of their mind and their heart, then I'm complicit in this. And so I want people to just do better. And as long as we do better, we move faster.
Absolutely. So question for you, obviously, like, first thing is first, I think that what you just said is correct, because I think also with the vastness of social media and the ability to transfer information so quickly gives us a huge leg up in the stand. Like, you know, if we didn't have video cameras, bystanders with cameras, like you said the other day, we wouldn't even know what the truth that would have been told about George Floyd would have been. You know, like, thankfully someone had a video camera, and that stuff can go viral in seconds. But also the ability to transfer information and the truth and the stories and the emotions of people like you that have felt this, your story. And I think that's just so important. And I think that's why this has a lot better chance than even 10, 15 years ago of having some big changes. You know what I mean?
But I also recommend people who have never experienced racism to first don't talk of it as if you have. That's very arrogant and slightly ignorant. To be discussing it as if you know what it is.
Right.
But the second thing is educate yourselves on it. There's a lot of studies, there's a lot of movies based on real stories. Just Mercy, 13th, it's all on Netflix. And then there's this one thing I've been guiding people to, because if they want to talk to me about it, I ask them to read this first. I say, hey, Google, if you just Google the white space, Yale sociology, this PDF will come up. And when I was like doing some digging myself to point people into the direction of which I couldn't verbalize myself, this is one thing that I read through, and I was like, man, people need to read this because it's actually real. And it's called The White Space, Yale Sociology. It's a 12-page PDF that will come up, automatically download. But grab some knowledge for yourself before having these deep conversations, so that there's some level of empathy that you can humble your tongue and humble your hearts to not so quickly to defend or to speak on things that you're not educated on.
Yeah. So. And I think when there's such heightened emotions and let's be real, social pressure, right?
Absolutely.
Social pressure is a thing. It's like, well, I said this, what'd you say? What are you doing? Like, and it becomes this blame game of like, people having this expectation for other people, but also maybe not being educated in the approach. And, you know, that's something I even asked you about the other day. I said, hey, I've been putting out content because I'm trying to spread the message, but Mark, I haven't lived in your shoes. I don't have the point of view that you have, and I want you to educate me. And that's why I really enjoyed our conversation, because I want to approach it from the right way.
But what I've loved about how you've been approaching it is you've thought of your Black friends that you've served with, your Black friends that you know, and I could tell from your content that you could picture my name being the next hashtag.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, so it's like if we so I think people dive into the whole party thing, or you know, this, that, and the other, because it's easier to make it less human to them.
Oh yes. Yes.
But if you take any of your Black friends and you replace George Floyd with that name, that's the fiber of which people should actually be in this. Because I know, and I saw this written somewhere, so I won't take credit for this, but it's real. When we were in history class, when we read about the Holocaust, when we read about slavery, when we read about Jim Crow, I know for me, I've said to myself, I wonder what I would do, what I would have done if I was in slavery, what I would have done if I was a part of Jim Crow, what I would have done if I was a part of the Holocaust. Whatever you thought you would have done then, that's what you should do now. It's a human fight for people to feel. And Nate, just grasp this. We're talking about civil rights. Civil rights. Just be civil. And take that up to equal. That's a huge task.
You know,
but it takes everybody.
Yeah. And I love that you give that perspective. I'm all about invoking emotion to change action. I believe that emotion is the binder to any information you receive.
Yeah.
It's the thoughts are triggered by whatever is from our childhood, which then in turn evokes an emotion, and our emotion is what we feel. However, nothing can ever be changed. This is why politics are absolute shit in this country, because they're all surface level, monetary, materialistic things, right? Yeah. When politicians speak, they don't talk about the emotions of the people. They don't talk about what they're going to feel. Yeah. When they're talking about abortion, like when they're talking about all these different big things, right? When they talk about racism, it's, well, this has got to be fixed. Yeah. But they don't bring the story of someone who's experienced and let them tell you how they felt.
Yeah.
That changes the game. It changes the perspective.
Yeah. And I think sometimes leaders are making moves without even stopping to ask the questions of what we should do from people that they have around them that are Black or that have experienced this in a deeper level. And there's a part of me that I can't even relate to people that are disenfranchised. So there's only a level that of which my circle can reach to invoke change.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm not from the south side of Atlanta. I didn't grow up on welfare and this, that, and the other. I didn't go to a school that was systemically racist. So there's a part of my message that can't reach there. We all have our different points of where our messages can reach. And it is all about just, getting into it. I have no idea what that was leading into. But
no, I think that's good. And so as you just made that statement, what would you, let's say Mark Bush could be president for a day.
Okay.
Mark Bush be president. What would be your approach? What would be, what would be your voice to the country, and what would be your message or action to change?
So just like how we look at COVID and how quickly that changed our worlds, and it did nothing. It took nothing for the president to get on the line with all the governors across the country. So where is the leadership is my problem is. And so it's one of those things where it has to start from the top and trickles it way down. If people can see their leader saying and acknowledging that there needs to be a change, their leader saying what in his scope he can change. And so it's about bringing the right people to the table to talk to them about it. Because even our president needs to be educated on what racism is, what it feels like, what in the systems have created a people to feel so subpar or inferior. So my day as president is, first, let me seek education from those that have walked it and have lived it. Let me seek their guidance on where they think we need to make changes. We're in the police department. And so, again, you have a lot of ignorant people talking, and, it's defund the cops. It's there's a little bit of dismantle the cops. Well, these are overcorrections to an issue. And you and I talked, I think it actually goes down as small as reasonable suspicion. So if we can change in the police force, if we can make guidelines between what defines reasonable suspicion, Black and white, versus what's probable cause. Those are two different things, and reasonable suspicion allows for a lot of biases in a cop's attitude and demeanor, as well as how are cops funded. If cops are funded in a manner of which you're rewarded by how much activity your precinct is getting, and that trickles down into these quotas. Well, nobody's saying a quota, but yet the young beat cop understands that you get excited every time we make an arrest, and every time we get a certain number of arrests, and we get new vehicles, we get new this, that, the other. So we can't use arrests as a form of reward system to budget our police departments. So that needs to be looked at. And then for that overzealous cop to understand that they need education on the law. So they get enough education. Some departments get enough education just to pass the test to be the cop, while other departments get education to actually fully understand the psychological effect of being a cop and the laws of being a cop. So why is this not spread throughout the country? Because we're being affected by one cop's action. The whole country's affected by it. And so it's a matter of don't defund, give more funds. Let's get the psychologists out there to educate. Let's get the lawyers out to educate. Let's do some training where they have to sign off and reevaluate annually. So it's about making reasonable change, not change just to change.
Yeah, so, thoughtful change. Mark, you brought that's an excellent point of view. And I love exactly, because I wanted to touch a little bit about the police thing, because that's such a hot topic right now too. But so as you're talking about this, I think about one thing, and I think about everything you said is completely valid. But as a business owner, I think about this.
Mm-hmm.
I think about the police chief is the CEO, and all his officers, lieutenants, are his employees. And if the police chief isn't setting the proper culture for his team, he's allowing those behaviors to happen. In fact, he probably knows. In many parts of the country, the police chief knows what's happening. He knows who they're targeting. He knows which neighborhoods they're driving into, and he's accepting it. So where's the leadership in the different police and the different precincts?
Yeah.
Like,
the thing is, though, is I think about, as well as on the CEO level, is could my actions be misunderstood? Psychologically, as a business owner, as a CEO, I have to know that sometimes my request can be construed as a must. Something that I mention can, to the wrong person, make them feel like I needed that or I wanted that. You see what I'm saying? And so we do have to be comfortable or conscientious of how the words leave our mouths and how the people are affected by the words leaving our mouth by our positions. And that's what I'm talking about with these quotas. The quota doesn't necessarily have to be set, but I walk into a room as a precinct captain and I say, well, the 12th precinct just got funding because of all the action that's going on over there. Now I have 3 overzealous cops who took that as a switch to just go start searching for things. And when I say searching, I don't ever fault cops for actually getting bad guys off the street. But if you're out there searching for things, pulling people over for a broken tail light, just to walk up on the vehicle to see if you can smell alcohol, to then get probable cause to do a DUI stop, you're wrong, because for every 10 to 15, for every one person you actually arrest, how many people have you harassed and made to feel divided from you and the police department? I'm a good citizen. I'm a great citizen. And I've had traffic stops that have left me shaking mad, because how are you going to disrespect me? I was law enforcement. I'm a veteran of this country. I'm a great citizen. I'm a business owner. And you would do this to me to make me feel small and embarrassed and like you wanted to screw me over.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I think the divide is coming at, is leaders not understanding the repercussions of not understanding the conscientious decision to speak and what they're speaking to their employees to make them trigger to mess with their community, not be for their community.
Mark, I think you just rolled the solution, and this is perfect because you're a perfect example of what a leader should be. But the reality is, on all levels in this country, from the president to the mother to the father to the business owner to the police chief to anybody else, to the friend, it's all leadership, and education, leadership and education. And this is why I think in times of adversity, people look for the leaders to stand. This is like my big frustration as it's all kicked off, is like, some of the people that I look up to that are on very high scales. And I'm saying, where are you at? Like, what's your word? Everybody in adversity goes, where's the leaders at? Because not many people have the courage to stand up and speak. Yeah. They're afraid of what's going to come at them. They're afraid of not saying the right thing, and they really lack the courage. So, we have a lot of good leaders in this country. So at the beginning of all this, I'm going, where's my guy at? Like, when's he going to speak? When's he going to say something? And, maybe some people were just taking calculated approaches. I understand that. As a leader, it's always, it's good to be decisive, but also, as you and I both know, and being in war, calculated risk taking.
Taking time,
right. Yeah. Sometimes that means you got to think on it for a couple of days before you come out and guns.
And the thing is, though, is some of these leaders are going to come out to be there for the longevity of this mission of equality. Right. And while there's necessary things for every bit of this. There's necessary people to be out protesting, to show that we hear you, we see you, we're with you. But then there needs to be action. Today was voting in Georgia. So the primaries today. So we need people to vote
Right.
for the right people they feel could make great legislation for change. Then you need the people that are going to lead the movement that can't be, 1, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but to go on so that it's a lasting change, not a immediate and dormant change for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, this has been great. In fact, you answered most of the questions. I looked at my sheet of paper. I'm like, well, in conversation, he answered most of the questions I even had for you. But Mark, I want to tell you that for one, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate our friendship. I appreciate your leadership, and I appreciate your heart. I think that a lot of people are having a hard time, and I completely understand that right now. But it's people like you, with your leadership and your articulation abilities, and your intellect to be able to create change and much bigger pools than the average person. And I truly believe it does take everybody.
Yeah,
it takes us all, just like you said.
It does.
But I really do appreciate you and your voice. And I think that you should definitely, as I know you will, you're talking to me, you're texting me all the kind of the plans and the things you were trying to put together. And I know Mark, when he goes big. He doesn't half-ass anything. And I'm sure you have some plans to help out and with your capacity. And I guess the final just thought or final question for you to leave the audience with something. I think there's been so much good information and education for the audience already, but just like, what do you leave them with? What's your call to action? What's your, if you could just give them one piece of advice moving forward for this to be a long-term commitment and not a quick, match burnout. Like what could you leave the audience with that could really help them make change?
I think that, and I'll just say change for right now. We got to get off the side picking on this. We got to stop thinking about how we got to the conversation isn't approved by me, so I don't want to be a part of the conversation because they will make everything like this a part of the conversation. I think people need to stop and just a simple question. Would you agree and acknowledge that racism exists? If the answer is yes, then you move it down to what do you do? Okay, so if you think it exists, that's a yes, then we can then agree that we need to get rid of it. So if that's a yes, then we're going to move it over and we're going to say, so how do I become a part of the solution, not an increasing part of the problem? And with the sharing, all these memes and it's coming from both sides. Look at racism. See, this is racist. This is racist. And then it's the other side. This is a political agenda. This is this and the other. But put all the noise away. Does racism exist? Do you agree it shouldn't be here? Then what are you going to do about it? And it starts with our hearts and lead from there.
I love that because that's a place that most people don't go.
Yeah. It's a hard pill to swallow when you look at your own heart.
Oh,
and seriously answer those questions.
Yes.
Yep.
And I think that you're right on. And I think that some of your stories today hopefully made people feel that in their heart. I know for a fact it did for me. Just to kind of feel a little bit of your pain. I can't feel your pain, but I can, in your words, I can feel it in my heart.
Yeah.
And I think that I want everybody to feel that. I want everybody to feel a little bit of the emotion that is involved in this, because for many people listening to this, it's not you.
Yeah.
You don't have the ability to feel, nor do you probably care to.
Yeah.
But what if you could? What if you did? What would it feel like?
Yeah.
And what would you do? And what if it was your brother? What if it was your dad? What if it was your sister? What if it was your best friend? How would you react? And I think I love that approach of how you said that, because that changes the game. It changes the perspective on how you're going to react. Man, yeah. This is deep, brother. I love it so much. And I love you. I love you, Mark.
Love you too, brother.
Thank you so much for this time. I really appreciate you, man. And I think this is going to be highly educational, informative, and emotional for people. And I think that it's just a message that the world needs to hear. So to close out, I highly suggest you go find Mark on Instagram. It's at Mark Devin. Is that correct?
Mark Devin 31.
At Mark Devin 31. Go follow him on Instagram. Watch his content. Watch his page. He's always putting out great information. He's a great dude, and he's got a lot of credentials. He's also got a couple books that are also listed there on his Instagram. So go read them. They're incredible. Live Intentionally. I read that one, and it's a pretty quick read. So taught me a lot about being intentional when I lacked that in my life. So thank you for that. Yeah, go follow him, watch his content, and watch Mark change the world. I've always had such a belief. I've always had such a belief in
One
this
person
man.
at a time, man. One person at a time.
I've always had such a belief in Mark and his capabilities and his leadership, and you're going to continue to do great things and speak your word, man. And I appreciate that.
Thanks so much, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely.